Hello everyone. I am delighted to say that we have reached the final session in our Apple Teacher journey. It's great to see you back here for the last of the series, and I hope you're making great progress on those badges. Just keep me posted on how you're getting along. As I shared in our last session and in an email that I sent out as well, there were some technical issues with sharing my screen from my iPad and also sharing the audio from GarageBand. And that you wouldn't be able to hear what I was doing on the app, which seems a bit pointless when it comes to sharing a music making app in particular. However, I found a way around it, but that involves recording the session. So I thought the best thing to do was to record the session and send you out a link instead, and you can work through it in your own time. So today is our GarageBand for iPad session. And for the last time for Apple Teacher, I am Ruth Burnett. I teach at Bishopton and I'm an Apple Distinguished Educator. I'm one of the facilitators at our Apple Regional Training Centre. If you're not sure what the Apple Regional Training Centre is by this point, please just drop me a line and I can explain in a bit more detail what we get up to. As I always say, take the time to play around with the apps on your device at your own pace, but especially when it comes to GarageBand, it can seem quite overwhelming and there's a lot of different things you can do with it. But my best advice would be to just take some time, press some buttons and see what happens. Today's going to be very fast paced and with lots of content, so definitely check out this session as many times as you need to so you don't miss any bits. Now, this is an overview of the different areas we'll be looking at today. GarageBand is probably the app I personally feel least familiar with. Over the last 6 months, I've made it my mission to get to know it better, and I'm so glad that I did. It's a fun and powerful mobile recording studio that can be accessed in simple or complex ways to create music, sound effects, podcasts, and more to engage learners and listeners alike. The tools are intuitive and they make it easy to play instruments and add voice, loops, or sound effects. This can be used in your classrooms to great effect. Yes, indeed, to learn about music, but also with songs to reinforce vocabulary, record poetry, create soundtracks for writing inspiration, or to go alongside documentaries. So let's have a look at creating a new project. So I'm just going to click plus. And you'll see here that now that I've created that new project, I can have a little look through the different touch instruments that I have access to. I'm going to make sure that up on the top that I have tracks selected. So you'll see there's live loops and tracks. It's tracks that I'm after. And I can go left or right to view my different options. So let's have a look at guitar. Here we are. And I am going to click the smart guitar. You'll see in the top right-hand corner, there's a little question mark. I'm just going to tap on that. And it brings up this really useful tool. GarageBand has lots of built-in coaching tips, and this helped me feel less stressed by all the buttons and options, as lots of helpful information is revealed by tapping that little question mark. Just turn it off for just now. And you can see that I can drum my string. I can pick individual strings as well. And I can change between chords and notes if I would like to. Go back to there just now. And if I wanted to pick another instrument to try out, in the top left-hand corner, there's a little icon that's 3 little boxes. I'm just going to click on that. And I can go back and have another one. Let's have a look at the bass. And I can change the type of bass as well within the touch instrument. You can see there's lots of different types within there. And again, up in the top right-hand corner, there's the coaching tips. The coaching tips are really helpful for both yourself and showing learners GarageBand for the first time. If I was going to create a series of music lessons using the app, I would perhaps make a screenshot and use markup on these tips to guide and support. We can also use the audio recorder to create high-quality recordings of your voice or gather sounds around you. Let's have a look. So I can go back, use my 3 little squares, and this time I am going to go to my audio recorder. Here we are. And I'm going to click the little one that says voice in the bottom left-hand corner. And again, you'll see I've got all my little helpful coaching tips there that I'm just going to turn off for now. And you'll see in the center, you can actually see the microphone going up and down because of the input from my voice just now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap where it says studio and then the microphone in the middle. And you'll see that there are lots of sound presets that can alter the voice recording. So let's pick the narrator one. And what I'm also going to do before I do any recording is turn off my metronome. Otherwise, it's going to pick that up in the recording. And the way that I do that is up in the top row. You'll see that there's a little metronome and it is blue. So I'm just going to tap that and it is turned off. But I also want to be able to record for as long as I would like to speak or put input into this. And the way that I do that is over on the right-hand side. You'll see my numbers that go along the top. It ends in a plus. And I'm going to tap on that little plus. And you'll see it says the song section menu pops up. And section A, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to be automatic. And this allows you to record for however long you would like. Now, in newer versions of GarageBand, there's even a button that allows you to skip those last few steps right at the very start. So if I go back to my Songs browsing area by clicking the little document icon in the top left-hand corner, and you'll see there is a button that looks like a little microphone with a plus. If I just tap on that, I already have my narrator presets and I have my metronome turned off. So that's already ready to go. Just kind of skips out those first few steps for you. And this is great for recording podcasts or getting right into the voice recording process. Now, when I click on the red dot, it will begin my recording after a count in. And when it's finished, I'm going to tap the triangle. So let's just test that out. Welcome to my podcast all about recording with GarageBand. And you'll see that the bar at the top is now changed to blue to show that I have recorded something there. And I can go back to the beginning with the arrow with the little line, and I can preview my recording. Welcome to my podcast all about recording with GarageBand. I'll just stop it just now, don't need to hear it over and over again. The button I'm going to show you next will take you into Tracks View. And Tracks View is the one with lots of little horizontal bars up in the top left-hand corner. So I'm just going to tap on that. And what you'll see is my recording that I have made in the first row alongside a picture of a microphone. And this is the first row or track of my project, and I can build things underneath this. Now, in Primary 5, we've been learning about biodiversity, and one of the groups wanted to show what they had learned with an interview with a famous scientist. And they got to grips with GarageBand really quickly and recorded it using Voice Recorder. And I will show you a little example of that later. Now, one of the quickest ways to create a simple musical composition is by using Apple loops. Now, they're short recordings of drum beats, bass lines, rhythm instruments, or sound effects that can be built up to create something wonderful, without any need to read music or play an instrument. So let's try it. So we're already in our existing project in Tracks View. And to open Apple Loops, it's quite straightforward. Top right-hand corner, there's a little button that looks like a loop, and we're going to tap on that. And this shows us all of our Apple Loops that we have at our disposal. And you can search for particular types of loops using keyboards and then narrow this by instruments, genres, or descriptors if you want. Let's go in here. Maybe I want something with some synths, and it's going to find me all of the synth loops that are there. And I can tap on it to preview it. Stop it there. And when I have a loop that I'm happy with, what I can do is drag it from the list to an empty part on my Tracks View screen. It then becomes what is known as a region on a new track. So let's go for that one. I've dragged it in and popped it there. Now, what I can do is, now that I have that in place, I can drag the handles to change the length or drag this region to where I want it to play within my project. So perhaps I only want it to play at the very start. I can tap on my region. You'll see it's got the little handles up. I can then drag that into the place that I would like it to play. I'm then going to put my little button at the top, the little arrow on my line to the start of my project, and then press play and see what happens. Welcome to my podcast all about. So you'll see that it plays and then it stops right at the right point when my audio kicks in. But perhaps I want it to go underneath the audio as well. So I can just drag it and have it underneath my audio for the exact same length of time. Put it back to the start. Welcome to my podcast all about recording with GarageBand. And obviously we'd need to adjust the levels, but we'll have a little look at that later so that the background music isn't too noisy, that it's too loud for the audio recording as well. Now let's say I'm happy with that and I want to save my song. I just click that little paper icon in the top left-hand corner to exit tracks and return to the My Songs browser. And you'll see it's there. Now, Apple Loops can be added to voice recordings to create moods and themes and also to enhance particular words or phrases. So let's have a quick look at that news report by a group in my Primary 5 class. So what this group did is they created a script for their interview and then they recorded this using audio recorder. So let's have a little look. Now, one thing to say is that they downloaded an additional pack of Apple Loops for when they were creating it. And I'm just going to show you briefly how to do that too. So let's go back up into our Apple Loops browser and you'll see it says get more Apple Loops. There's a gigantic library of Apple Loops that you can download onto your device. And they have different sounds that that tend to be quite thematic. One of the ones that's quite good for primary schools, I think, is called Toy Box. And Toy Box has lots of really useful sounds that would work particularly well in primary classrooms, especially, I think. But depending on the kind of feel you're wanting to go for with your GarageBand creation, you might want to add additional sound packs into GarageBand. I'm just going to close that for now. So you'll see their creation has quite a lot of tracks. In the top one, we have our audio recording, and then they used live loops, which I'll talk about a bit more later, to create this multi-track underneath. They then went on to adjust the volume of each of the tracks individually to make sure it sounded just what they were after, and that none of the other tracks overwhelmed the audio recording, which was the most important bit. So shall we have a little listen?
Hello, welcome back to BBC Scotland. I'm your host, and I'm with my two friends called Say Hello.
So there we have just a little example of the wonderful work done by a Primary 5 class and a group that had absolutely no experience with GarageBand before using it for this project. And I think you'll agree that the results are pretty amazing with that in mind. Now, the sampler within GarageBand can be used to record virtually any sound and play it back as a melody on the sampler keyboard. Lots of fun to be had. These sampled sounds can then be used as sound effects or background noises in songs, narrated stories, and podcasts. So let's go back to our My Songs browser, and we're going to go back into our song here. And now we want to create a new track in this existing project. And down in the bottom left-hand corner, we have our plus. So we're going to add something. And that brings us back to this browser that we've seen before already. And we're going to swipe to keyboard. And you'll see down in the bottom, third one along, we have sampler. Now you're going to want to ensure your mic is near the source of the sound you want to sample. And then we're going to click red to start sampling and tap when it is done, the red button on the right-hand side here. I'm going to go for a cat sound. I can't find my cat, otherwise I would have gotten to do it for me. Meow. Okay, so I started and I stopped using the big red button. And I can then use these little handles just to trim out the bits that I don't want. Just that little bit at the end. Now that can then be played on the keyboard and the sampled sound will go up and down in pitch as I play. Excellent. Now, a project I'm looking forward to trying out in the warmer months involves sampling outside noises and will task the kids to create a soundscape to portray different seasons and weathers. Another project I've seen done is collecting sounds to show a day in the life to create an audio narrative of how the children go through their day. Now, once you have made recordings in GarageBand, a graphical representation of these called a region appears in one of the tracks. And you can see this in tracks view. Let me just flip back. So these are known as our regions. And when we're in track view, from here we can trim, split, and arrange the regions to build and amend your audio projects. So to trim a region, we select it, and we can drag the handles on either side to make it longer or shorter. To make more precise edits, we're going to touch and hold one of the handles to zoom in where you're trimming a region. And you'll see there, I can now do a lot more precision trimming as well to get the right bits off that I want to. But we can also split a region. Perhaps the bit that we want to cut out is right in the middle, or perhaps we've got a long recording that we want to split into two different sections and have something happening in the middle. So let's have a look at how we would do that. So I'm going to double tap on my region here, and you'll see the little pop-up menu comes up, and I get a button that says split. I can then drag the split marker, and then I'm going to pull the little scissors icon down where I want to split it into two different sections. And once I've done that, it's done. And now I have two separate pieces that I can move around in my project. Perhaps one of your tracks needs to have the volume adjusted. So like we were seeing in that project created by the Primary Fives, they found that some of their background volumes were too loud and they couldn't hear the speaking anymore. So what we want to do is be able to adjust the volumes of the tracks. It's either too loud or too quiet. So what we do is we look at the icons on the left-hand side. You'll see we've got our synthesizer here. And we're going to drag that over to the right to show the track headers. And within that, we can then adjust the volume, silence it, or listen to the track by itself with the headphones button. So let's try just our synths. And I can go back. And this time I'm going to adjust the synths and make them a lot quieter and have them all of the tracks playing now. Welcome to my podcast all about recording with GarageBand. So you'll see I now have one region that was split into two sections, and I have my synthesizer volume brought right down so that I can definitely hear my vocals. Now, editing allows the recorded interviews to be enhanced for added impact by splitting the recording and adding in sound effects, Apple loops, or sometimes other musical elements. Let's move back to how we use some of the musical tools within GarageBand and focus on Drummer, where we can add beats to any project. There are a variety of virtual drummers, each with their own style, that are influenced by diverse genres and cultures. Let's have a wee look. So this time we're going to go into Drummer with our new project, and we're going to tap on Acoustic. Now our preset drummer that comes up is Kyle, and if we click the play button, we can hear Kyle play. And as he's doing that, we're going to have a listen to some of the different presets by clicking on this button that says half pipe. I'll just stop there for now. Now, as you slide these little yellow pucks up or down on the X and Y pads, it adjusts the loudness. Sliding it left or right adjusts the beat's complexity. So let's put that back on, and I will play around with this little pad over here on the left-hand side, and you can see how the beat changes again. Now, tapping on pieces of the drum kit can mute or unmute them, and you can also drag the sliders for additional beat variations on the different parts of the drum kit too. So let's try that once more. So lots of little adjustments you can make there on the presets that come already in GarageBand within Drummer. So drummer can be used to create beats to enhance the rhythmic nature of poetry, or creating personalised music with an appropriate tempo for fitness, for example, and then adjusted again for a cool down track. Now, we briefly looked at touch instruments at the start of the session. Let's have a closer look at the variety of instruments that we have in GarageBand. So I'm going to go back to my track. And in this existing project, I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to swipe to where we have our keyboard. And I'm going to go for Smart Piano, the first one. Now I'm going to turn my autoplay, which is that little knob there, to 1. And we can see we have chord strips, and I'm going to alternate between the C and the G chord to find a good pattern. Now, when we have a pattern we're happy with, and we can record it and then press play again when we're finished. So let's have a little look. Now I can click the backwards arrow, I can preview it. Perhaps I want to change it to a different type of piano. I'm not massively happy with the grand piano sound. So I can tap on that, and I have an absolute bunch to choose from here. So let's go for a soul organ instead. So it not only changes it for when we're putting in more chords ourselves, but it also changes the existing track if we want to. Using touch instruments and building songs around a basic chord pattern is a great start for creating musical compositions in GarageBand. And I highly recommend the work of Apple Distinguished Educator Owen Hughes, who you can find on Twitter/X, as he's done lots of amazing things and some really straightforward and easy to use Apple books guiding you through the process. Now, one of the last things I'd like to show you is live loops, and kids go absolutely mad for live loops. You can play, edit, and arrange musical ideas in real time like a DJ. It's great fun, if I don't say so myself, and it's really easy to do. So let's go back and create a new project this time. So we're going to click our plus. And before, we've sort of mostly been in the track session, this time we're going to click to live loops. And you'll see there's a whole selection of little buttons here. And you can also go into the sound library and download more from there as well, because each of these packs will also have live loops that go alongside them. I'm going to go for Neon Dreams for this one. Now, when this opens up, you will see my live loops grid, and it has various instruments and loops already built into it. And you can see them down the left-hand side. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to tap one or more of the cells to play them, and it's going to sync them up in time as well. So I don't need to worry too much about the timing, and you can see the active loops that are working. We're back to the start there. Now you can tap one or more cells to play them so that they sync along with each other, or you can play all of the loops in one column at the same time by tapping the little up arrow at the very bottom. So let's have a little look at how that sounds. It honestly can make like amazing tunes dead easy. It's brilliant. Okay, so I don't get too carried away, I'll just stop there for just now. Now, once you've had a play around, you can record a live loops performance by pressing the record button and then triggering a sequence of cells, and then playing to review it at the end. Now, when you tap Tracks View, so that's the little horizontal bars, remember, at the top? It takes you into here, and you can see all those different tracks that you have built by triggering those cells. And what you can do then is you can edit each track if you wish as well, just to give that little bit more personalization after you've used the live loops grid. So live loops are a great place to get started with GarageBand with our youngest learners and those that are new to that. You can create soundtracks and background music with ease. Depending on the grid you choose, you can create music to represent different cultures and traditions. It's awesome. So the last thing we'll look at is how to mix our recordings. Perhaps we want to adjust the various tracks and add effects. This is the final steps before we export our audio projects before sharing. So let's have a look at how we do that. So for this, we're going to tap the Adjust Slider button. Now that's in the top left-hand side beside that big FX button, and it's the little lines with the little circles on them for the little sliders. And when we tap that, you'll see that we now have some adjustments that we can make for each of the tracks. So I can go down and you'll see that it changes for each of the tracks that I have selected, and I'm adjusting that one specifically. So let's go to our synth basses. Now, dragging the trackpad slider adjusts the balance between the left and the right speakers. So perhaps you want the sound to come out more of one side than the other. I'll pop it back about here. And adjusting the treble and bass sliders changes the tone of the track as well. And you can also adjust the reverb and echo levels and hear how to affect the sound. And remember, we can click that little headphones button just to test out what it sounds like, and we will only hear that track. So we've added a lot more reverb and we've added some echo to it as well. And it just kind of changes the mood and the tone of that particular track. So lots of little adjustments that can be done in there. And lastly, we have the compressor slider to smooth the difference between the loudest and the softest part of the tracks, just in the central section here. Now, while this may seem like super specialist adjustments, they can actually be done with relative ease and do result in a project with just slightly more finesse. Perhaps if you have various recordings of different volumes, this ensures that they can be heard equally. Adding effects when mixing can also simulate the sounds of voices in different environments. So one wee quick thing I did want to show you before you go, and this is less for the Apple badge and more just for a little fun thing that the kids in your class might like, is how you can adjust the audio recordings as well and add little funny weird effects on them. So the way that I've done this is I'm just going to go back to my songs and I'm just going to do that little quick shortcut with the little microphone and the plus. And it brings me back into this interface again. And usually so far we had it on studio. Now you'll see I've got a little chipmunk here because I selected in fun. There's all this selection as well to choose from. And I'm going to go for robot. And what that means is when I record into it, it is going to change my voice, add some effects to it to make it sound like a robot in the recording. I hope you've had fun learning about GarageBand. I hope you've had fun learning about GarageBand. So yes, ridiculous. Will the kids love it? Absolutely. And now all we need to know about is how to share what we have made, either as a project or a song. So let's go back to our My Songs browser by clicking that little paper icon. And we want to give our songs a name. You'll see already mine is a bit of a shambles because they're all called My Song with numbers. That's not a good way to manage your files, so let's give them a name. So I'm going to rename this one. I'm just going to hold down on the thumbnail, tap rename. Let's call it GarageBand Podcast. Done. Now this time I want to share it. Now we can share it either as a project, and if we share it as a project, it means the person that we share it with can then edit it within GarageBand as well. We're sharing the whole thing, all the different tracks and everything. So if I hold down and go to share, you see those three options come up. So if I wanted someone else to be able to play around with in GarageBand with that project, I would click Project. And then it brings up my different sharing options there. So I could drop it via AirDrop to someone else for them to make some adjustments to. However, what I actually want to be able to do is I want to have my song, my finished product. I want to have it as a song format that I can either upload onto Seesaw, maybe I want to add it into iMovie, whatever I want to do with it, I need it as a song file. So I'm just going to hold down, share, and this time I'm going to go for song. I would generally tend to go for high quality. That seems to work quite well. And you can add in information like the composer, the name of the album, whatever. Sometimes kids enjoy doing that as well. And if you want to, you could even get them to design their little cover image in one of the drawing apps, and they can upload that as a little image that goes alongside it, which is quite a nice touch too. Then I'll click share. And I'm going to click save to files. Now that will store it as a file on my iPad, but again, I could AirDrop that to someone as well. But I'm just going to store it here. And then the song version of that project is saved in my files, so I can send it, add it into iMovie for some app smashing, or add it into my keynotes pages, whatever I want to do with it, because I now have it in that format. Now, the lovely thing about creating a GarageBand project is that you can share it with others to give them the opportunity to remix it and add their own tracks, Fatboy Slim remix style. Now, we've covered all of the GarageBand content for now, but there's a lot more to the app. It is definitely worth exploring for the different projects people have used GarageBand for in the Apple Learning Centre, just for some inspiration, as it can feel quite intimidating as you start learning to use it. Thank you so much for joining me for these Apple Teacher sessions. I hope you found them useful, and I would love to hear in our RTC space on Teams how you get on with using what you have learned in your classrooms. Just a quick RTC plug, we have 4 new courses up on CPD Manager for over the next few months, and they are in-person ones. Hooray! If you have any ideas for courses or things you would like us to cover, please do let us know, because that will help us create the content that works best for you. Now there is a QR code on the screen for our feedback survey. Thank you for your time over the last 6 sessions. I look forward to hearing all about our new Redfishire Apple teachers when you receive your recognition certificates. Bye-bye.